During the 1990s, several corpses of people were excavated from mass graves in South Korea, leading to public awareness of a massacre which was named as the Bodo League Massacre that occurred in the summer of 1950 during the Korean War. It was a war crime against communists and many civilians who were accused of being alleged sympathizers of the communists. According to the historians and experts, the estimated death toll was between 60,000 to 200,000. The massacre was committed by the government forces of Syngman-rhee. For about 4 decades, the South Korean government made efforts to hide the truth about the massacre by threatening the survivors with torture and death. A league called as the National Bodo League was formed by Korean jurists under the order of the South Korean President Syngman-rhee, who is also labeled as the dictator of South Korea. The purpose of creating Bodo League was to start a re-education movement to disdain and stop the influence of communism on the Koreans. Political opponents of Syngman-rhee, communists and their sympathizers were enrolled into the league, including the civilians who had no connection with communism were forced to join the Bodo League under suspicion. In 1950, just before the outbreak of the Korean War, the first president of South Korea, Syngman-rhee, had about 20,000 alleged communists imprisoned. On the 25th of June 1950, North Korean army known as the Korean People's Army attacked South Korea, starting the Korean War. When North Korean's army was advancing, the South Koreans had to retreat, fearing that the communists and their sympathizers would join the North Korean army and strengthen them. President Syngman-rhee ordered the execution of people related to either the Bodo League or the South Korean Workers' Party on the 27th of June 1950. A day later, on the 28th of June 1950, first massacre was started in Hoeungcheong and Gangwon-dong. The Bodo League members, along with many other captured communist prisoners, were executed by the retreating South Korean forces and anti-communist groups. The executions were performed without any trials or sentencing. Kim Tae-sun, the chief of the Seoul Metropolitan Police, admitted to personally executing at least 12 communists and suspected communists after the outbreak of the war. When North Korean army advanced near the Daejeon, the South Korean paramilitary forces executed around 7,000 political prisoners, which included men, women, and even children. But on September 1950, Seoul was recaptured by the South Korean army. About 30,000 South Koreans were summarily deemed traitors and collaborators with the North Koreans who worked against the interests of South Korea and were massacred. After the UN offensive, in which South Korea recovered its other occupied territories, the militia groups executed suspected North Korean sympathizers. Moreover, on the 4th of January 1951, the Gangwon massacre was committed by South Korean police, who killed 139 civilians in an effort to prevent their collaboration with the North Koreans. Before the war began, United States were present in the South Korea to limit the Soviet influence and initially played one of the key roles in getting Syngman-rhee to power. Also, the U.S., along with South Korean military force, aided right-wing civil organizations, such as the Gangwon Self-Defense Forces, by providing combat equipment and supplies during the Gangwon massacre. Many American officers present in South Korea were witnesses to the executions. According to one witness, 40 victims had their backs broken with rifle butts and were shot later. Victims in seaside villages were tied together and thrown into the sea to drown. Retired South Korean officer Nam Sang-wei confessed that he authorized 200 victims' bodies to be thrown into the sea, saying, "There was no time for trials for them." There were also British and Australian witnesses. Great Britain raised this issue with the U.S. at a diplomatic level, causing Dean Rusk, Assistant Secretary of State for Far Eastern Affairs, to inform the British that U.S. commanders were doing everything they can to curb such atrocities. During the massacre, the British protected their allies and saved some citizens. The Associated Press conducted extensive archival research and found documents classified, secret, and filed away by the Pentagon and State Department in Washington that had indicated the U.S. Commander General Douglas MacArthur made no attempts to curb the summary mass killings. During the executions, at least one U.S. lieutenant colonel is known to have approved the executions at the request of a South Korean regimental commander, Rollins S. Emmerich, who, after initially stalling and disapproving, told the South Korean regimental commander Kim Chong-won that he could kill a large number of political prisoners in Busan if the North Korean troops approached. A mass execution of 3,400 South Koreans did indeed take place near Busan that summer. In 1999, after many years, photographs of the massacre were released which were captured by American officers who were present in South Korea, who witnessed and photographed the massacre. This was merely one of many such mass killings conducted by South Korean forces against political prisoners in the first months of the war. Many, including the Daejeon massacre, were propagandistically blamed on the North Koreans. At that time, the massacre was also reported to both Washington and General Douglas MacArthur, who described it as an internal matter of South Korea. On the other hand, in another, United States official documents, it shows that the ambassador of United States of that time, John J. Muccio, recommended South Korean President Ri Syngman and Defense Minister Shin Sung-mo to stop the executions. After over half a century after the massacre, investigation was done and it came to know that what happened in the political violence largely kept hidden from history, unlike the well-publicized North Korean executions of South Korean right-wingers. In 2008, trenches containing corpses were discovered in different parts in South Korea, and mostly in the Daejeon. South Korea's Truth and Reconciliation Commission documented testimonies of those still alive and who took part in the executions, including former Daejeon prison guard Lee Jun-young. Until this day, the Bodo massacre is considered as one of the most horrifying massacres in the South Korea's history. Hope you liked this video.
Like, share and subscribe to archived information for more.